Welcome, everybody. My name is Sawyer. Welcome to the Secret to Zero Gas Fees workshop. I'm here today representing the SKALE Network. So I hope we have some hackers here. I see some faces I met last night, so let's kick things off. So again, my name is Sawyer. I run SKALE's developer success team, and I'm also an active community developer. So super excited to be here. It's actually my second presentation at ETHSF, which is awesome. Great to be back. Just for a little bit of background on me, software engineering background, got into kind of the DevRel developer success kind of work a couple of years back with SKALE. And since then, I've helped hundreds of developers build on blockchain across SKALE, and overall just really love to support everybody building. So if you're around this weekend, come find me at the booth. I'll be here helping you guys hack. On to SKALE. So for those of you that don't know, SKALE Network, it is built different. It is built different for mass adoption. How do we actually do this? We do this through a combination of high throughput, sustainability, and scalability. I know that's a lot of buzzwords, but throughout this presentation, I promise I'm going to work through all of those, okay? On to probably the most important thing, and the thing that most people, at least if you haven't heard of SKALE yet, you'll know zero gas fees soon enough. Zero gas fees is something that if you haven't seen in the blockchain space before, that's okay. It's here, and it's been here, and it's big, okay? The reason for this is blockchain's really great, right? I think everybody can agree that it's pretty cool to see people take control of their data, of their assets, right? Do things in a way where they can be more flexible, right? Maybe a little bit more freedom. But we don't always want to do that, at least I don't ever want to do that, by sacrificing the user experience. And so the biggest thing that zero gas fees enables is an incredible user experience. On top of that, it also enables great business economics or unit economics, okay? Now, moving into SKALE itself, because I know I haven't really touched on it, I've just thrown a bunch of buzzwords at you. SKALE is 100% EVM compatible. So if you use Hard Hat, Solidity, right, Foundry, all your favorite tools, 100% compatible. This is obviously big because we don't want to force you to learn something new just to come build. We want you to be able to build what you want with what you want. On top of that, high throughput. High throughput is critical, and it's also one of the reasons why SKALE's had such incredible growth over the last couple of years. Not only is it one of the top blockchains in the world, it's actually been called the top blockchain for gaming by CoinGecko, which is really exciting because I've worked with a lot of games, some really incredible ones, and they're really pushing the pace with how they use the chain to throw data at it like nothing you've ever seen. Now, on top of that, something really critical is building without limits, okay? I'm all about this. I've written a couple blog posts about it. I live and breathe this kind of thought process, which is when you're building a traditional application, right? So let's take blockchain out of it for a second. You've got a database, you've got a web app, you got a mobile app, something like that. You are not limited by, oh, you can only send X amount of data. You've probably seen LLMs, you've seen big AI data applications. They're pushing terabytes of data back and forth throughout the cloud without any issues. So how come so many blockchains are restrained by 30 million gas units in a block? We are not. Over 268 million gas units in a single block allows you to put more on chain than you've ever been able to before. By the way, for comparison, that's about a 768 time increase than most of your popular chains. Let's step back to why zero gas fees. And before I do that, I should probably intro SKALE a little bit. Otherwise, some people in the crowd are going to be a little bit mad at me. So we have this blockchain, right? SKALE Network. But it's not just a single blockchain. It's also not a roll-up. Okay, so if any of you are L2 people, SKALE is not a roll-up. It is not a layer 2. It is a network of blockchains, okay? And that's really critical to the scalability piece I mentioned at the beginning. So this network of blockchains, right, every single one is EVM compatible, has zero gas fees, super high throughput, hundreds of TPS per second. It's essentially a network of mini Ethereums, but cheaper, faster, and allowing you to build what you really want to build. Now, looking at zero gas fees, because that's what this presentation is about, right? That's what our bounties are all about. So if you're hacking, make sure to check those out. Why zero gas fees? Again, user experience is critical. We want you to be able to build for real people, right? Not just bots and whatever else people are doing on their chains. We want real people using blockchain, and that's what you can build on Scale. Additionally, a big thing is because there's no valued gas token, right? So we do have a gas token, it's called S-Fuel. I'll get to that in a second. But because there's no valuable gas token, you do not have to force your users to go to a centralized exchange or an on-ramp in order to start using your application. That is a huge area of friction. We see lots of people churn out trying to come into blockchain. We don't have to deal with that. Additionally, I'm not going to hate on it because it's really cool technology. Account abstraction, right? It's hot, everyone's using it, but why is everyone using it? Primarily, gas abstraction. Again, you don't need that on Scale because we don't have gas fees. Additionally, no gas fees means greater scalability, right? I know, no pun intended, the name Scale, but throttled throughput is a big problem, right? So one of the things we haven't seen in a while, because we've obviously seen, we're in a bit of a down market from a usage perspective. We're seeing a lot of chains have much less users and throughput going on. And the reason that's important is because gas fees are a lot lower. And so with gas fees being a lot lower, throughput's not really a concern for a lot of these chains. But when everything kind of picks back up and you see a lot of these chains start to grow in usage, they start to get throttled. They start to kick people off, send them to their own L2s, things like that, right? We saw it a few years ago, and it wreaked havoc on a lot of ecosystems. And so that is one thing you do not have to worry about with Scale. Lastly, again, is unit economics. So looking at a gas fee, right? Gas fees being variable. As chains start to get congested, things start to cost more, right? Because you're essentially trying to outbid someone else for that compute space. If everybody's gas fees are zero, you can basically have the best unit economics hands down, right? Because again, you're not competing for every single little bit of block space. You're simply outright buying this block space. I'll get to that more in a little bit as well. Deep diving into S-Fuel. So especially for the hackers here, S-Fuel is really key. S-Fuel or Scale Fuel, right, works just like Ether on Ethereum mainnet or other gas tokens and other networks. The big differentiator is it has no monetary value, right? So again, it cannot be purchased. It cannot be swapped for. It's not on decentralized exchanges, anything like that. It has to be given to you. And that is by design because Scale at kind of its base layer was designed to be an app chain network. And so these chains are designed to be encapsulated, right, kind of within their own ecosystem if they want to, or our hub chains allow these ecosystems to grow, let other people in, and kind of let that S-Fuel trickle down. That being said, if we're zero gas fees, why do we have a gas token? As you can probably see, it's for security, right? We do recognize that networks that have very cheap gas tokens, we've seen them get DOSed in the past. It's not pretty, things go down, everybody gets mad. Because S-Fuel is a protected resource, it allows us to, well, not us, it allows developers to meter the users, right, and meter other applications to protect the network and its resources. Again, S-Fuel, right, if we have to give it to people, we have to talk about distribution. The reason I wanted to add this in specifically is because for the hackers here, this is something that if you add into your dApp this weekend, if you're building on Scale, going for the bounties, this will make your dApp way better. It's something that we work with every single project building on Scale to help them add, and it's critical to having a great onboarding experience. So, Scale chains, they don't have any gas fees. End users need this S-Fuel to transact. So what do? We give it to them, right? But you'll notice the very last word on this slide is invisibly, right? Zero gas fees, very fast, great user experience. How do we do that? We create invisible experiences. And so a big thing is if I go to a dApp on some chain and they say, hey, you need gas tokens. They throw a modal in my face. They say, hey, put in a credit card, KYC, do all this stuff. You don't have to do that on Scale, right? In fact, you don't even know there's gas. When you go to these dApps, you connect your wallet, or maybe you log in with an email, or maybe they spin up a key for you, whatever it is, right? There's no restrictions here. So decentralized network, they just give you a little bit of S-Fuel. Just like that, you're off to the races. Moving on to a bit more about how the network operates based on this, because the question that we always get is if there's zero gas fees, how do the validators get paid? How does Scale make money, right? Before we can kind of look at that, we have to recognize that because there's zero gas fees, right, validators are not getting paid transaction by transaction, block by block. Validators are getting paid to essentially work together and make the chain. And that's one of the reasons why we don't have forking, right? Things are incredibly fast and things are incredibly secure. Additionally, as long as, just a kind of a call out to the broader scale architecture, as long as less than 1/3 of the nodes are not Byzantine, AKA not malicious, not unsynced, not down, the chain just goes, right? So again, there's no round robin consensus, nothing crazy there. The chain just builds. Looking at the actual incentives, because these validators are all just working together, they have to get paid, right? Because the way a decentralized network operates is someone has to be incentivized to run it and everyone else pays to use it. But as we've recognized and built out, it's not sustainable for us to do this transaction by transaction, block by block, right? Things are too variable. It doesn't work for real businesses. That is how most networks work, whether they're L1s, alt L1s, L2s, L3s, whatever it is. They have gas fees, and if they are a proof of stake network, they may have some form of inflation that their validators get. Scale validators do get inflation. There is a token called SKALE. It lives on the Ethereum mainnet. It's delegated by people. The validators take that token, they stake it into the network, they use it to collateralize their nodes. It's part of why the network is so secure. They get bounties every month. They take a small fee of that. But we recognize that with pretty much all proof of stake tokens, the inflation generally goes down over time, right? Because there's less and less tokens that get created, the supply starts to shrink. And so we had to make sure that this was something that would last forever. And so in order to do that, what we have is kind of akin to a cloud as a service, right? Your AWSs, your Google Clouds, Azures of the world. There is what we call scale chain payments or scale chain pricing. This pricing is something where chain owners, right? So again, Scale's a multi-chain network. There's many chains. The chain owners pay into the network every month directly to the validators. And so this is, again, very different, I know, than many other chains. But the key is that it creates sustainability and stability, right? As a developer, what happens if you have 1 million users tomorrow? You have 5 today and you got 1 million tomorrow. Your chain is just going to break, right? Gas fees are going to go through the roof. With Scale, they just stay at zero the entire time. The price is set through governance, through the Scale DAO. The fees themselves are paid in the SKL token. They're actually paid on the Europa hub, which is one of the Scale chains. They're not paid on Ethereum mainnet. That was a decision made by the community to help save chain owners gas fees and help validators not have to pay those gas fees when they were claiming. And then lastly, again, just kind of calling out to the sustainability, validators all get paid equally out of this. So it does not matter whether you're running 1 node, 5 nodes, or someone in the future could be running 1,000 nodes, right? As the network continues to grow, every validator node gets paid equally, okay? And so again, that's very critical because what this means is every validator node can run multiple scale chains. And so it doesn't matter whether you're running 1 chain or 5 chains, you're making the same amount of money. And this is key because in order to allow the validator set to continue to grow, we always need to have excess nodes in the network to allow new chains to be created. And so this, again, creates that sustainability to let the network continue to grow as needed without running into any sort of supply issues. Jumping away from more of the technical stuff and looking, again, at why zero gas fees is so important, user experience. So this is actually a demo, which I'm hoping it'll let me play here. Perfect. So this is one of our earliest games that went live on Scale called Voxelverse. Incredible game devs, great pedigree. But what you'll notice is as this guy walks around, he's picking up rocks, he's picking up wood, he's picking up meat. And you'll notice that on the left side, there's transactions firing. And they just happen. Again, no MetaMask popping up, no extra clicks, no gas fees in your face. It just works. And so again, this is just a great showcase of how the Scale network design and architecture lets people build real experiences, especially for gaming, where if anybody's a gamer here, you're probably aware of some Web3 games maybe not being so great. This is a way for Web3 games to build great games first and then add blockchain for the benefits of blockchain afterwards, right? They don't have to sacrifice one for the other. Sorry about that. There we go. Moving forward and kind of double clicking back into unit economics, because this is really critical for kind of long-term people, people trying to build long-term in the space, right? So the idea for, I think, most companies or most people trying to build a company is you start and you want to grow. You want to grow big, right? So today, most developers that are building on Scale, they start on one of our Scale hubs. We have 4 of them. We have a gaming hub called Nebula. We have a DeFi and liquidity hub called Europa. We have an AI hub called Titan. And we have a Calypso hub, which is a bit of our social, kind of broader innovation hub. However, as you grow, right, let's say you start out doing a few hundred transactions per day, you move up into the thousands, next thing you know, you're doing millions. You're going to be eligible for your own Scale chain, right? Because you need all that compute now. When that happens, you're now thinking, oh, wait, I have more expenses, right? But you also have way cheaper transactions, right? If you look at these unit economics, this is kind of how the economics of the network are designed. Scale chains cost a flat fee, okay? Right now, the network fee is set at $3,600 per month, paid in SKALE tokens. However, this number that you're looking at is actually based off of $10,000 a month, based on the fact that the community believes that over time, the pricing will increase because the value of a chain is very high. And so this is actually more expensive than what it costs today. But what you'll notice is this is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a penny, right? We still see L1s and L2s out there today that have, penny, 10 cent, 50 cent, even sometimes, dollar plus gas fees. And again, it's just not realistic to onboard the next, let's not even call it a million, the next 100,000 people into Web3. It's just not going to happen, right, with those gas fees. And so this is just some really good proof for how great the unit economics are that allow you to build a real business on top of the Scale network. Additionally, just a call out to some of our other bounties this week. We are putting the majority of it behind zero gas fees, but we have a bunch of other features, such as our native IMA bridge, our on-chain RNG, our on-chain Oracle system, and our file storage. All of those are part of our other set of bounties. It's important to note that these are all included in that price. So you're not paying extra for Oracle. You're not paying extra for RNG. You're not paying extra for file storage. This stuff is just baked in. So again, I know it's a lot of information coming at you very quick. The Scale network is generally more complex than other chains, but it is incredibly powerful. So just keep that in mind as you're planning to build this weekend. This is my last slide, so I'm going to pause here for a second because I'm a bit ahead of where I thought I would be. And so I just want to kind of take a step back and kind of recap Scale Network again, because like I said, I know I went pretty deep into gas fees first, but I wanted to make sure I had enough time to talk about the benefits before I went into deep technical information. So kind of taking a step back real quick, and then I'll open it up for questions. So again, the Scale network is multi-chain, okay? It is not one chain. It is not an L2. It is not a roll-up. It is a network of many chains. Layer 1 chains, very powerful chains. I always like to call them mini Ethereums just because, I knew Ethereum before everything else, and I think it's a great way to kind of conceptualize what the network looks like. Looking at the Scale network as a whole, obviously like we've talked about here, right? Zero gas fees is kind of the bread and butter, right? It's the thing that everybody knows it for, but it's incredibly fast, it's incredibly powerful, and it's incredibly versatile. You can build almost anything on this that you can build on any other blockchain, plus you can build true Web 2 experiences side by side. Looking outside of the unit economics, specifically at the validators, it's also really important to call out that Scale is very decentralized. A lot of people, right, in the space right now, there's a lot of back and forth around what should be decentralized, what shouldn't. That's an area that Scale has never taken a step back on and said, hey, it's okay to be centralized. We want to be decentralized because we believe that if you're building on blockchain, use blockchain for what it should be. And so all of the validators are third-party organizations. They're not run by Scale Labs. They're not run by the Node Foundation, often referred to as the Scale Foundation. They're run by top-tier validator organizations, Figment, Blockdaemon, Chorus One, as well as a number of smaller ones that we love to work with, like O1 Node, Easy to Stake, et cetera, et cetera. It's also really important to look at the time that Scale's been around. Scale's been around for over 4 years now. I think we just had a birthday a couple weeks ago, which is really exciting. And that's on mainnet. In that time, we've had a number of releases. Our V3 was actually just a few months ago. We had some incredible performance improvements. And then looking back a couple years ago, our V2 opened up chain-to-chain communication. So again, there's a lot of features, not enough time to talk about all of them. But if you want to come ask me about them later, I'm happy to talk to you about them. But lastly, I think the most important thing, when it comes to Scale is there's always more information. We have very detailed docs. We have an incredible team. We have Jack here, CEO of Scale Labs. We have Connor, our head of sales and strategy at Scale Labs. We have Ben, our head of partner marketing. And then Zara is one of our amazing marketing individuals as well. So we have an incredible team here to support everybody this weekend. And so, like I said, I know there's probably a lot of unanswered information, and I will get to it probably just individually because there's just never enough time. But that is what I wanted to get through. So thanks, everyone, for listening to me ramble for 20 minutes. Questions? Thank you. Hmm? Yeah. It's a fantastic question. So what happens is, as per the governance proposal, which all this is public, right? This is all 100% online. You can go to the forum. You can go to the Scale DAO on Snapshot. You can see it all. The way it works is if a chain stops paying, they have a 3-month period where they essentially have the ability to pay down their debt, right? So let's say they stop paying today. Come, I believe it's January 1, they need to pay back all that debt. Otherwise, at that point, their chain comes up for, is basically eligible for deletion by the network. In that case, what happens is all of the assets on the chain would be migrated over to one of our hub chains. And so that can happen in one of two ways. Either one, a team of developers can basically take a snapshot and they can airdrop essentially all the tokens back over. Or what would more realistically happen is our IMA, so our interchain messaging agent is our native bridge. It is actually baked into Ethereum. So we have a lot of pieces of our network that are actually baked into Ethereum for extra security. And so our primary bridge is actually a lock and mint bridge where people deposit assets on Ethereum, they get minted on our Scale chain. And so what happens then is there's actually functionality where when a chain is being deleted, all of those assets get pulled out of the chain back to Ethereum, back to the chain owner. And then that chain owner can, again, then airdrop them back to the user. So the big thing here is, again, this is a decentralized network. And so there's not one single person in control of all of the chains. It's really a chain by chain basis thing. But the big thing that we recognize is if something like that did happen, you know, there's a lot of people that would obviously want their assets. Then it's basically developers come, they say, hey, how can we transition all of this over to a place that's going to continue to exist, which realistically is going to be those hubs long term? Great question. Yeah.
So I understand, like, whenever you deploy an app, like, when does the app, so as a developer, I have to give the gas as bill to my users. So when does my app get the as bill?
Absolutely. Also, I apologize. I forgot to repeat your question. I'm supposed to repeat the questions first. Question was, when a app is going live on Scale, when do they get access to S-Fuel on mainnet? So I'm actually going to start on testnet just because it's very important to the process. We always recommend people deploy on testnet first, right? Especially because Scale is very different. Make sure you kind of hit everything, make sure it all works. Once you're actually going to mainnet, what then happens is you'll either be introduced to the owner of a hub chain, if you're going on a hub chain, or we'll work with you directly. The DS team will work with you to get you the assets you need, aka the S-Fuel. You'll get a small deposit of S-Fuel during that kind of go live process. You'll then be able to deploy apps. You'll be able to get whitelisted on mainnet, have access to deploy, et cetera. So all of that happens when you're actually going live. That way there's no wasted resources and no, we'll call them leaks in the network, meaning if everyone just got a bunch of S-Fuel, it obviously wouldn't be a scarce resource, wouldn't be very secure. And so the idea is that only people going to deploy actively on mainnet are eligible to attain these resources. And then you would then distribute that out to your users as they come. And then usually the natural follow-up to that question is, what happens if I run out of S-Fuel? You simply request more from the hub owner. There are public faucets on all these chains that distribute very small amounts directly to users, but we do find that a lot of applications prefer to do more manual distribution just for speed purposes. It allows them to create better experiences. And again, because it's a decentralized network, you're more than welcome to, right? There's many ways to do the same thing, and it's a great option for people trying to create invisible experiences.
So on testnet, it's just a possible.
Yes. Correct. Testnet is 100% permissionless. So this QR code on the screen actually will take you right to the docs. And it'll take you, we actually have one of the only documentation sets where you can get gas and ERC20 tokens right in the documentation. So go on, pick a chain. There's 4 of them. Our Europa, Nebula, Calypso, and Titan hubs. You go on, you select your chain. It doesn't really matter if you're hacking this weekend. They're all pretty much the same from a technical level. Minor optic differences. You can get gas right in the docs. If you don't want to go there, sfuelstation.com is the community faucet. It has all the testnet chains as well. But if you ever run into an issue, you're having problems getting S-Fuel, just come find me or join our Discord, ping the developer success team. Again, we're here to help. Everyone should have access to the resources they need. But fantastic question. Anything else? Yes. Yes. It's a complicated question. It's a loaded question because there's a lot of factors. Sorry. Is Scale the world's fastest blockchain? Thank you. It's a complicated question because there's a lot of factors that come in, but the answer is yes. And the reason is for a couple of reasons. One, throughput is obviously key, right? But everyone's fast now. Everyone can do high throughput, or at least so they claim. Finality is what is relevant here. Because at the end of the day, you can hammer a blockchain with as many transactions as you want, but if things aren't settling right away, then you're basically running in an optimistic world, right? But a lot of these chains have, multi-minute or even multi-day periods for settlement, especially when you start to get down to the L3 level. And so the way that speed, like I said, is kind of looked at, it's generally looked at TPS is like the primary metric, but the answer is Scale is not only the fastest in terms of TPS, at least according to the Dartmouth report, which if anybody's interested, we can send anybody after, but more importantly, in my opinion, is finality. Because if you are not final fast, then you're just basically run centralized, right? There's no reason to be on blockchain at that point because you don't care. And so hope that answers the question. Like I said, I know I have a bit of a different opinion on it, but we are both fast and finality is insanely quick. It's about 1.2 seconds on average on a Scale chain right now, and it's only getting faster. Our engineering team is making incredible advancements month over month, quarter over quarter, and things just keep getting better and better. Also, fun fact for everybody, Scale chains can't fork. So I know that's still something that a lot of chains have to deal with because of how unified validation operates, where all the validators work together. Basically, if there is a fork, that means there's a state mismatch, and those validators have to resync and get themselves back. And so it also means that when a transaction has one block confirmation, aka it's added to the chain, it's there, it's done. And so again, speed is very important, but I think there's multiple ways to look at speed. So hopefully that answers the question. It could be either or. The current Scale hubs are all DAO operated or just kind of like loose groups of people. Some of them are at different stages. So our Nebula hub is run by primarily by a team called Prospectors, but they're in the process of decentralizing out into a DAO. The Calypso hub is operated by a group of about 7 different people, very loosely. Again, they're also looking at kind of moving more into a DAO format. I'd say our Europa hub is probably farthest along toward being a DAO. They have some public pieces that they've looked at performing and pushing toward for a while. But at the end of the day, Scale chains are rentable resources. So any group of people or entity or DAO can come and say, hey, I want a Scale chain. I'm willing to pay for it. And they can operate that Scale chain. DAO, business, corporation, group of people, partnership, individual. If it's on the chain that you are operating, you have the ability to choose who deploys. Once someone is deployed and they're active, there is no current way to censor a project because again, it is a decentralized, permissionless network. But you do have the ability to choose who can deploy. Any other questions? These are great. Keep them coming.
Can you say how the chain fork? Like, what do you mean by that? Can you explain that more?
Yeah, so it's less of an issue now on Ethereum specifically since the transition to proof of stake. I believe the metric that I saw last was 99% of blocks are good. There's no forks. But basically what happens is when you have a decentralized network, there's a bunch of different, we'll call them people here, or entities, trying to build a chain, right? A chain of blocks. But the problem is no one can trust each other, right? That's where everyone's putting up a bunch of collateral and they're loosely sending transactions, broadcasting, grabbing stuff out of a mempool if there is a mempool, et cetera, et cetera. And what happens is when there's a disagreement, a new validator is selected who builds the biggest chain in a proof of work chain. Basically there's a hard fork every time, or a soft fork technically, right? So that was back when, it's very common with Bitcoin still, very common with Ethereum back before the transition to proof of stake, because again, whoever builds the longest chain, you can go back and basically change things. And so that's why if you ever did like, we'll call it, it's not as common anymore, but if you look like 5-6 years ago, back when you used to deposit to a centralized exchange, they tell you like wait 100 block confirmations because they were waiting to make sure there was no forking in the chain. Because scale chains work together, or at least the validators do, meaning they're all building together and they're just working through block proposals as quickly as possible, it solves the problem of the fact that the chain cannot fork functionally because all of the validators are on the same page. This is done through a combination of threshold encryption and BLS signatures, where essentially every validator who's running a node, when they get a transaction that comes in, they sign that transaction, they broadcast that transaction. At the same time, people are giving them transactions. Then they get to the blocks. They're building blocks. Once they believe that they have all the transactions, they then sign the block and say, hey, this is the winning one. They then broadcast that. Well, they're also getting broadcasted too. Then lastly, what happens is the winning block proposal that gets 2/3 of the signatures, aka the supermajority, gets actually selected and posted to the chain. And so because this is Scale specific, by the way, because this is how Scale operates, it's physically impossible for the chain to fork. Because if it forked, it means that the validators are on different pages and people are going Byzantine and they're malicious. And so at that point, the chain just pauses. That's also fun fact. Scale chains, they don't go down, they just pause. As long as there's validators running, they just basically keep trying to build the chain. And as soon as 2/3 of the validator nodes, aka 11 out of 16 in our current chain sizes, are back and running and healthy, the chain just picks up where it left off and keeps going. Yeah, I know I'm a bit over time. I don't know if I need to vacate the room, but if there's more questions, I'm happy to field them until they kick me out. Also, for anybody watching on the live stream, that was a question about how does Scale Chain prevent from forking? If no other questions and everybody's leaving, 20,000 up for bounties, build zero gas fees, build with the best use of zero gas fees or our Scale native integrations and features. Again, link to the docs. I'll be around all weekend. Yeah, come by the booth. Thank you, everybody.